Hey everybody, welcome back to another week of the Bitcoin 15. I'm your co-host, Peter Beckstrand. Alongside with me, as always, is Peter Christensen.
What's up?
Gonzo, I'm gonna shoot over to you. What are the numbers that we're looking at for this last week?
Yeah, so this past week, for the week, we're up just a little over 1,000. We started at 32.3, and right now we're sitting around 33.5, or at least that's what it was when I checked a little bit ago. We know it moves fast. Similar to last week, really, we had some big swings in there. It dipped below 30,000 yet again. And sure enough, people started buying it up once they started seeing those numbers in the 20s. And we got all the way up to 38.5. Part of that might have been because Elon Musk put hashtag Bitcoin in his Twitter profile. Who knows?
Who?
Because because that uptick happened like right around the same time there. But then of course it settled back down, and so pretty modest gain for the week.
Yeah, thanks. I was one of those people that try to scoop as much chips as possible, but just like everybody else probably out there, you see these prices and you're like, oh, right where we're at, I can only go up from here, and it's kind of stayed right where it's at. But I still feel pretty good about the scooping those sats while we could. So let's review some of the good topics that
Mhm.
we outlined together. First one I want to throw over to you is, like, some of the Ivy League endowments have been buying Bitcoin for the last year. And this article you'll be able to find in the description down below, but I think we found it mostly on CoinDesk. I don't know if they source it from anywhere else. Harvard, what was another one? Michigan was another one. I know they're not in the Ivy League. They had people that they noticed were putting Bitcoin in the endowment. Were you surprised to hear that at all? I think I was surprised to see that, how large Harvard's endowment was.
Um, I wasn't surprised by how large their endowment was because I've heard that before, how amazingly huge these Ivy League endowments are, and some other ones too, like Stanford,
Yeah,
big public schools like Michigan too. Um, yeah, I wasn't surprised by that part. I'd say a little surprised that they've been buying Bitcoin, but we've already been seeing other institutional adoption, some smart money. Those schools, they got really successful business schools. They got really smart people that went there. So they've got some
yeah,
really smart dudes, well, and ladies running their endowments. So the smart money starting to follow Bitcoin.
yeah.
So it was inevitable. It's going to keep happening.
Didn't the Winklevi go there? Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
Yeah, kind of a good. I think I saw a movie once. A good segue for that is, Ivy League endowments are showing up, but you also mentioned, you know, maybe some larger institutions. How about Argentina? Crypto is booming down there. I just should say South America in general, as they've had some, I don't know, hostile, volatile governments or currencies, local currencies themselves. It seems like Argentina, from the articles that we read, is really taking a look at crypto just to hold some place for the residents to hold, or put their money that holds value for, longer than their current currency, or even outside the USD, or I think they're even looking at pesos. And kind of the last one that parlays into that as well is Colombia, Estonia, and the city of Miami are all hosting Bitcoin white papers on their main websites, and something that's pretty cool. Again, Colombia, South America, Miami, we touched about it last week or last 2 weeks, I think. But Estonia, I'm somewhat familiar with it just because it's geographical locations to some of the things that I find interesting in the world. But being a relatively new country, 1991, I think, is when they kind of got sovereignty. Uh, they have a super low population density, a lot of raw materials. I don't think their economy is doing that well, or had been doing that well. But they also do have a female president and a female prime minister. So I think they're looking in the future, and they see Bitcoin as being something that, again, just like the South American countries, will hold value as a digital gold.
Yeah, I think we're seeing more and more smaller countries, weaker economies, weaker currencies. The people just are seeing their currencies be worth less and less and are not a store of value. So I saw in the story about Argentina that people there are only allowed to buy US dollars a month from the central banks there in Argentina, and they tax them at a rate of 35% on top of that. And that's still a better
Yeah,
option
crazy.
for them than trying to hold on to whatever the Argentine currency is. I don't know if it's Argentine peso or what, but they and we know the dollar is losing value like crazy, but that's still a better option for them. So some of them, with those restrictions in place, are now gravitating towards crypto, most notably Bitcoin. Yes, Bitcoin went on crazy price increase lately, but I think in the long term, people are starting to see, hey, I can buy this without restriction, and it's going to hold value better, even if not better than the dollar at sometimes, even though we think it will. It's definitely going to hold value better than their local currency, and there's no limits on what they can buy, and there's no government regulation on it. Or I guess there can be government regulation, as we'll get into later, but at least in their current situation, it's a better option for them. So that's pretty crazy. And yeah, Estonia, yeah, it's a Baltic state, former Soviet Union. That's why I say it's a young country, but obviously Estonia, I mean, they were an independent country. I don't know. We won't get into history.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'll get just myself distracted. So moving on to another, what I thought was a good headline was also that Visa, their CEO Alfred Kelly referred to Bitcoin as digital gold, or really all cryptocurrencies they see as an alternative to gold. And that they are looking to see how they can work with exchanges and wallets to allow those currencies to be used on their platform, which I think is a good thing. Just another way for regular people to use Bitcoin, because who doesn't have a Visa in their wallet at this point, or an American Express or a MasterCard or whatever? And if they don't adopt, I think they'll find themselves getting left behind because someone else will, one of their competitors or whoever. So
they'll turn into like the Blockbuster to Netflix type of,
they
or
really
like
could if
what's
they don't learn to adapt.
Yeah. The funny thing that I was going back to, because before we kind of talked about our off-air production, I was saying maybe this, I'm always hesitant to say anything that's as ties to banking would be good for Bitcoin. But I think after just conversation listening to describe it there, having a player like that, and like you said, everybody has multiple, even in their current wallets, in their front pocket, back pocket right now, in their purses. It can only help with user adoption going forward, and it's really going to help maintain the value of Bitcoin. Because I think that's also something that everybody who would listen to this podcast, or anybody who invests, holds, trades, hodls, you always want it to be worth something. Otherwise, it won't be worth anything. So yeah, you changed my mind, and just like that. And I think it only took like 30 seconds. Just sad.
So then, but one headline we saw that we kind of consider in the bad category this week was that India's parliament is proposing a bill to ban private cryptocurrencies, because I think they want to get into the digital currency space themselves, and which a lot of governments I think are considering right now. If they passed it, India would be the only major Asian economy to ban cryptocurrencies rather than regulate them like stocks. And I think, we all know this, for some people not getting into this space of investing in crypto, they're afraid of government intervention, government banning. Thankfully, we haven't seen that here in the US, but some people think it could come later. But, I think that's an understandable fear, but thankfully, we're not seeing that really in Western free countries. But in the end, I think India is just going to end up, even if they pass this, they're going to end up just hurting their own people, and they're going to have to come back to allowing it in the end, and they'll just be behind the other countries. Like their next door neighbor, Pakistan, we had a story a couple of weeks ago about how they're using government money to mine it.
Yeah.
And they've been, rivals kind of throughout history, and they're not going to like what happens to them. I think if they might fall behind their rival a little bit in terms of that. I know they're a more powerful economy than Pakistan at this point, but that could help level the playing field if they don't kind of change their mind on this, I think. So hopefully that doesn't pass for the people of India.
Yeah, I think I don't know if the term applies here. I think we've talked about it before too. Is paper tiger, sleeping giant. I always think India. It's it's like, man, if India got a hold of this, or if they follow suit like Pakistan, it can only help with the reputation or the credibility of Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. So like seeing this, or anytime you see a government restrict something that's supposed to be kind of a free market or away from decentralization, it does look bad. But yeah, hopefully you're right that they correct course, and maybe Pakistan's success will then change their idea, and this might be a short-term restriction. So let's hope so, for the sake of everybody that's in India, or just the value of Bitcoin, or the relevancy of Bitcoin in India.
Yeah.
For all of our Indian listeners, obviously. Where's
we
Diego? Where's Diego at?
I know, I'm starting to fear Diego is a bot. Diego, if you're not a bot, please let us know.
Please comment below.
Anyhow, on to kind of like the biggest story of the week. This was so big, it was beyond not just, I mean, it wasn't truly crypto. I'd say it's crypto adjacent, just in the vesting world, but it was headline news even outside of investing in Wall Street type stuff. This GameStop short squeeze thing going on, the battle of the Redditors of Wall Street bets versus the hedge fund guys that were shorting this GameStop stock. And I'll just give a super quick summary here. There was, I guess, these Redditors found out that there was a few hedge funds that were not only shorting this stock, but it was shorted so much that more than 100% of the outstanding shares were shorted. I'm not even sure how that's possible. I'm not a short expert. But, and also one of the hedge fund guys was, I think, what they're calling a naked short, where he was bad mouthing the stock, announcing that it was going to go down. So trying to manipulate the market through media and stuff. So that way his short would go through, his hedge fund makes money. He's, he keeps doing well. These Redditors got wind of this, maybe because they're all gamers too. So they just wanted to look out for the little guy. And one Redditor spent like 50 grand on the stock like months ago. So they all wanted to rally around him too. And so they all started buying it to drive up the price, forced these hedge funds to either try to get out of the position and buy at a higher price, which kept driving it up. Apparently it was part of the craze. And I think maybe even bankrupted a couple hedge funds, or at least made them take amazing losses. Like we're talking in the billions here. So you could say the Redditors won, but midway through the week, as they're all, I mean, I checked out the sub Reddit. Some of them are talking about they think it's going to 1,000, 5,000. They're crazy. I don't think they realize how reckless they're being, but it's kind of fun to watch. I don't have any money, any dog in the fight at this point. It's just kind of fun to watch it. And so midway through the week though, Robinhood and I think TD Ameritrade, I think Webull, and maybe a couple other ones, for whatever reason, suddenly stopped allowing trading on GameStop. AMC, the movie theaters, was another stock that they thought they were targeting for the short squeeze. A couple others they were restricting trading on, or at some points they were saying you could only sell. And everyone's like, whoa, this seems highly illegal. I don't know the law. I don't know if it's illegal or not, but anyone freaked out. Republicans, Democrats, like Ted Cruz, AOC, they were coming together on this, although they kind of bickered about it too. But like, kind of like, well, AOC said Ted Cruz tried to kill her. I'm paraphrasing, but so there's a chance to possibly unite the left and the right. I mean, seems to me this is all sign of a bigger populist movement. This isn't a politics podcast, but I mean, we've seen unrest, Black Lives Matter riots, Capitol riots. Now this is kind of like a Wall Street riot. It's happening digitally. It's the poors against the elites, or the middle class versus the elites, whatever you want to call it. People are upset right now, and they're upset that things are controlled by, it's centralized, controlled. And they have no say, they feel like. And then they figured out a way to stick it to the elites, and then they shut it down by shutting down the exchange. And we talk about this on a Bitcoin show to say, how does this tie into Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin is decentralized. It can't be shut down by one single person, or one single entity like a government or a hedge fund. And so GameStop, Wall Street Bets Twitter was getting a lot of support from Bitcoin Twitter and the Bitcoin corners of the internet and saying, hey, we're brothers, we're in this together with you. And hey, come over to our side. Bitcoin is where you should go to next. And latest I saw was a Forbes article saying that there's actually a lot of hedge funds shorting Bitcoin right now. They don't believe in the current price. And so could the Wall Street bets guys go to Bitcoin next? That was a long run by me. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this story.
Yeah, well, thanks for explaining it so well and giving your insight there. But yeah, it's funny you talk about the no dog in the fight. It's looking from the outside. It's just like, well, how does GameStop even have value? Like you're gonna hold on to it to $1,000 or 5,000, whatever that volume that dollar amount is. Like at some point, I think they're gonna sell. And I think just like playing DA here, that's probably how people look at us hodlers or us Bitcoiners of like doesn't have value. Where do you need to make your money? You're gonna make your money when somebody else thinks there's value there. So I kind of saw it that way, and it not opened my eyes, but just like it's always good to look at the play devil's advocate even with yourself when you're making decisions. Um, I think that you kind of hit on a couple things. It united people. You talked about the riots that happened this summer or X amount the last couple of years. But that's where property gets destroyed. People literally die. Like this is such a great revolution or a protest because no one besides the very extreme wealthy who, for lack of better wording, like they can survive potentially like this kind of revolution because they'll have hopefully diversified their portfolio. It's like all the things that the quote unquote rich people tell the average Joes to do. So yeah, they might be losing some of their livelihood, but like so many but they probably got their wealth because other people lost their livelihood, like the housing market that crashed and the bailouts that happened all 2008. I'm now going long, but I do think that there is some ties that show, hey, if you're upset with all these things that are happening in Wall Street and you don't think it's fair, come to the slide that established this years ago, wrote a white paper on it, and have started to kind of change the way people look at money or look at value and maybe holding on to future value of Bitcoin. So
Well,
yeah,
and
I think it's a good to have on your side. That's for sure.
a lot of people are making the point, if you think the stock market is manipulated by guys trying to naked short stuff on CNBC or whatever, wait till you find out what our government is doing to your money. And maybe these people already realize that too, but it's like, whoa, read and the Fed, read, the white paper, read about the Cantillon effect. There's so much you need to learn about why we need good hard money that's not can't just be printed willy-nilly by a central bank. So anyhow, once again, we go along. The Bitcoin 15 really might have to change its name. We're closer to the Bitcoin 20, I think. But
I think 19 sounds better than
unless you
20.
got one last thought, I think we should wrap.
No, I don't. I think it's a good place to wrap, and we'll see what we'll see if this game, GME stock, or if this conversation looks like next week. I don't think it's going
Yeah.
anywhere, but I think it'll just help strengthen that community between GME hodlers, these people who don't know they're hodling. I think it's a grammatical error to maybe turn into a Bitcoin. So we'll see, and we'll see if it's like. Should we start including like bold predictions for this next week? Do you think price will jump up now? What do you want to do this on the fly here? Well, we have a minute left before we go to the Bitcoin 20. Any forecasts? Maybe something fun to do.
I struggle with that because I think it's too unpredictable. I'd say
Smart.
for now, I think we're hovering in the 30s for a while. I'm not sure what's going to trigger the next like bull run that we saw in late December, but I don't know. I'm very not bold there. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll call it. I think we'll go to 45 by next week, and I do think the
Oh,
micro strategies, February 3rd and 4th, or 4th and 5th conference, I think that will do something. And to tie it with the whole GME, Blockbuster, AMC revolution. If you get more and more, there's those Twitters. I think we'd always talk about documenting Bitcoin or whatever his name is currently. If enough of those people can see the correlation and they start maybe just buying in, who knows? We'll see what the price is at, but I'm throwing 45 out
Now
there.
that is a bold prediction, and you gave a reason for it too. All right, let's call it. Thanks everybody. We'll see you in a week.
See ya.